All right, guys.
Ooh, looks like I just made it.
Well, that's right.
Call to order the Olivet Economic Development Commission meeting for October 23rd, 2023. Joe, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Zelinski,
Here.
Mr. Patershuk,
Here.
Mr. Talbot,
Here.
Mr. Moons,
Here.
Ms. Jacobs, and right now, she is not in attendance. And then I'll let the record reflect that Councilperson Greg Carl here is as the City Council Liaison, and then also staff, including myself, Carlos Trejo, the Director of Planning and Community Development, Don Doty, Senior Planner, and Jack Carswell, our Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Okay. First on the agenda is public comments. Of course, I see a very sparse audience tonight, as in no one. Is there anyone online?
No, sir.
Carlos? Okay, that's fine. We'll do something to bolster our viewership one of these days. Comprehensive plan update is the next item.
Just a couple of major things. One is that they're in the process of drafting the content or the framework of the plan in there, and we hope to have a kind of a public introduction of the plan on Thursday, November 30th is to go, and then we've kind of been looking at the schedule as we head towards adoption, that it'd probably go the Planning and Community Design Commission, which is our plan commission by state statute, has to hold a public hearing. That would happen possibly in January, and then they would take action in February, and then we would forward the plan to the council for consideration. It's not the council's plan, but we would ask them to provide some type of resolution of support.
I believe we acknowledge it is what we do, and accept it.
Yes.
Yeah, and actually, like we don't, EDC has nothing to do with it, but I would highly recommend everybody, looking at some of the meetings, so some going to the meetings, having their voice heard, because it is an important part of how the plan's going to go forward, et cetera, and make sure that your personal opinions, wants, and needs for the future of the city are heard.
Wait, who owns the plan? PCDC owns the plan?
Yeah, the state statutes requires all planning commissions in the state to prepare a long-range plan for how they anticipate the city's land use.
Got it. Okay.
In there, and it's actually kind of a national, I don't want to say it's a national requirement, but it's a national framework. So every state has their own process.
Okay.
And the state of Missouri, the Planning and Zoning Commission oversees that. And in our case, ours is the Planning and Community Design Commission. And it helps the system to process the community's goals and values as it relates to land development, not necessarily policy. And then
I'll give you kind of an example real quick, just to kind of illustrate that. So the Sunshine Dispensary, Carlos, agree with or disagree with me if you don't think this is correct. The Sunshine Dispensary, while it went through PCDC and was reviewed for zoning, and conditions were attached to the special use permit to permit it from a zoning perspective, the council, when it comes to us for approval, gets to take in a larger purview, which we did. And that's why I felt like PCDC came to the right decision, because within their purview, it was, they made it, they put the conditions on it to make it as viable as possible. But then we evaluated it from a higher perspective as an overall good to the city and decided it was not the right place.
So the council could acknowledge the plan, but then just disregard it.
Well, it depends on it. I don't want to get into all the, I guess they could to some extent. Carlos, you want to get into that more, like how that would happen? I mean, things typically that go through the plan go through PCDC first. So if there was truly differences between PCDC and the council, big differences, I guess it could.
Yeah, we'd have big trouble at that point.
Actually,
since the council appoints PCDC, we kind of, there's kind of a, we have most people that review the strategic plan and say they can support it, before we
just being on the committee, I would suggest if anybody's suffering from insomnia, or they are genuinely interested, they are recorded and they are on the website, the meetings. The last one was kind of a come together meeting. It was only a couple of weeks ago. Looking at the survey responses that was presented. And there was some interesting discussion about things that were in it, some interpretations, maybe things that were left out. And it'll give you a good idea on maybe what to expect during the meetings, because beyond the commission, you see a little bit more than the average citizen. With that,
Can I ask if anybody hasn't taken the survey yet, the second survey?
is it still open?
No.
No, it's closed.
Because I did ask that at the last meeting, and
Oh,
they
you
said
did?
it was going to be about a week after that.
Okay,
So,
well,
yeah,
I hope you've taken it.
I think survey says closed. Okay, Carlos, business communications.
Sure. So for this meeting, we had invited Greg Yowitz, president of Keep Properties, who's also a developer of the Olive Crossing, to speak before us, kind of give us an update on the status of Olive Crossing and the Clover development.
Mr.
Yes.
Yowitz, we packed
Thank
the
you,
room
Mr.
for you
Yowitz.
tonight.
Good evening. So Carlos reached out and asked if I'd come give you an update, which I'm more than happy to do, and happy to answer any questions. So we'll go in no particular order. So it is my understanding that lots 1 and 2 have been applied for site plan and zoning and architectural. Did they turn in architecturals and architecturals?
And if you could just enlighten us as to where 1 and
So
2
lots 1 and 2 are the 2 lots immediately in front of the Clover Apartments. So it's everything from Price Road to the main entry. Carlos will probably pull up a map.
Oh, go ahead.
And so the plan is that should this applicant be successful, which it's my hope that they will be, we will then come in front of PCDC to request a consolidation of those 2 lots into one. We'll vacate the road that runs between them, not the utility easements. What else am I going to do? Oh, I'm going to apply to the Department of Transportation to close the right-in, right-out curb cut on Olive. Because what you don't want is somebody going 40 plus miles an hour east down Olive, hanging a quick right into the front door of a building where there might be people walking into a grocery store. You may have seen the name of the submittal document on the screen, which had 4 letters that may say the word Aldi. I can neither confirm nor deny, and it might say it up on the screen too with their logo. But I, of course, can't confirm or deny whether or not Aldi is actually applied to be in lots 1 and 2. So what you see on the screen is an old rendition of the site plan. Well, no, that's the Aldi plan.
Yes, sir.
That is that plan. Sorry, I thought the building was smaller. But it's a roughly 22,500 square foot initial plan with about 119 or so parks. The back of the building will face Price Road. They will screen it. They have some lovely architecture on at least 3 sides, and most likely we'll end up with some on the 4th. And so, yeah, we're excited. It's taken a lot longer to get to this point than I had hoped. But then again, I did not plan for a pandemic in 2019, 14, 15, 16, 17, or 18 either. So it's sort of thrown a monkey wrench in the process. So that's happening. And so I'm looking forward to, do we have a date yet for a hearing?
Probably will be the November 17th meeting.
November 17th. I'll drop
be
that.
the
No,
earliest.
that's a Friday.
Then it'd be the 16th.
The
It'd be the
6th.
earliest that it'd be on the commission agenda.
I'll just put it down on my calendar. So that's happening. The Clover is occupying. I think we have about 27 leases currently signed. We're in the slow time of year, unfortunately, because the building didn't finish during the best time. But these things, shockingly, during a pandemic, construction doesn't go well. Plus, July 1st, we had a little bit of a storm roll through Olivet. We got water in about 85 units.
Ooh,
Actually, wind so strong that it blew some of the windows into the building. We think maybe there weren't enough clips in those windows, so the insurance company's dealing with that. So it took us a little longer to finish. We have received our building permit for lot 3 due to certain issues relative to, you guys may have heard that interest rates went up. And banking's gotten a little bit tougher. So we're in the midst of getting everything lined up with our banks to get the funding going to start construction. We have the multiply announced signed lease with Paris Baguette for the west side. We have a term sheet with another, not really a full restaurant, but a food service provider of sorts for about 1,200 square feet that'll go next to Aldi if we finish that deal up, which ideally we'll do this week. We had a restaurant deal for the East End cap, but unfortunately, pandemic again sort of destroyed this company's business. And while they were very excited to come to us, we were unable to feel financially secure in what they needed. So we're going to plan B, and I'm working on that right now. And I'm waiting for a term sheet from a fitness related concept for the middle, because what we want to do is make sure we don't overload that building with restaurants and seats and have people having to walk from too far away because there's not enough parking. Lot 5 is going to be an office building in the future. Pandemic's kind of screwed up the office market. You may have heard that too. So right now we're still talking to a number of companies, just trying to get somebody to bite. And when it comes, because as with the aforementioned challenges with lending, speculatively building a $70+ million building, not really feasible anymore. And then the garage, and then we have not come back to PCDC for this, but we have recently changed our franchise with Marriott Corporation from a 160 room dual brand hotel, which was going to be 80 rooms of Courtyard and 80 rooms of Westin Element, to a 128 room Courtyard only. We think that the hype around dual brand was oversold, and having 2 lobbies and 2 food service things and 2 of this and 2 of that really just wasn't conducive to running a successful hotel. One thing I believe my neighbors in Stoneleigh Towers will be thrilled to learn when we move this forward is that we will also be taking one of the floors off of the hotel. So it will be 4 stories instead of 5. We don't need a 5th floor for 128 rooms. If you've been in the area of Olive and Price this week, they are actually, fingers crossed, almost done with the road work. The retaining wall at Price Crossing is going in. The median is scheduled to be complete. The last bit of pedestrian equipment is being installed, and they are telling me they will be out of the road by the end of the month, and all lanes will be back open, including all the new lanes. The only thing you won't be able to do is turn right in at the right in, right out, because we're going to have that gated and barricaded because we intend to close it. We're in between lots 1 and 2. Which right now just leads you into dirt, but it's not for consumers and so forth.
Somewhere around there.
It'd be right there. It's being highlighted where it's going to, that's where it is and where it goes away from. And with that, and then of course, you probably also know that the wine merchant opened at Price Crossing, which is super awesome and will generate gobs of sales tax that were never planned for Price Crossing, which is good for, I don't know, everybody. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Open it up for questions.
And if you haven't seen the Clover and you want a tour, let me know, because it's freaking spectacular.
Yeah, just a comment about the Clover. I took my daughter there on their grand opening, and it's an awesome apartment building. She wants to live there, which is, disheartening. She has her own bedroom, but when you first, Greg, you've been in front of us like, I don't know, 4 or 5 times with this project for the last 5 years or 4 years. How one of the initial positioning statements to the EDC was that this is like an community amenity focused execution. And then it sort of evolved when, pandemic and all that stuff. And this is the most recent, I haven't seen this rendering yet, this site plan. It seems like lot 3 is the only one that's actually going to have a retail element other than the grocery store. And like the original positioning was there's going to be, a flood of restaurants in different places, and it was going to be a central place for people to meet and hang out. And that doesn't seem to be coming to fruition. Am I interpreting this correctly, or am I missing something?
I would say the initial vision was 6 or 7 one-story retail buildings, sort of solely retail focused. The realities of both the pandemic and the cost of developing this site, burying the creek, burying the power lines, necessitated a change to go vertical. In that, consistently, Carlos and I have talked, 1,000 times. And so what we've been focusing on is nodes of activity and places for people. And I would say that it's different. It's not sort of a community amenity, and it's just not the same. So in exchange for what we had planned versus where we are, what do we have, right? Well, we thought we'd have a grocery store before. We have a grocery store. I actually thought it would take up less space. It's taking up more. We're going to have 2 restaurants plus a third food provider instead of 5 or 6. Okay, so that's a few less restaurants. But what we're focusing on, especially in the area of that lot 3 building, which is in one of my 3Ds, is that pedestrian connection and flow, not just from Olive, but also from Price. So sidewalks, lighting, pedestrian access, dropping park benches in places for people to be able to stop and just sit, whether it's the sort of node in front of the Clover on the corner by the garage where we have bike racks and we have seating and we have green space, to the oversized patio and fountain area where lot 3 is, where people can congregate, and where I envision the tenants wanting to have people playing outdoor, playing music on nice evenings. Then I've also had a number of requests from people. I get calls all the time. When is the hotel gonna be done? My daughter or son's bar or bat mitzvah is coming up, or we have a family wedding. And I'm like, I'm working on it. But, and just so you understand the strategy behind it is Marriott and we are concerned that if we open the hotel before we do the office building, if there's construction debris and it happens to either block the flow of traffic or somebody pops a tire, they are going to destroy us on Yelp. If they destroy us on Yelp, that will hurt the longevity of the hotel. And so while I'd love to start that thing tomorrow, it's a concern. So I think what we have, instead of the initial 5 or 6 restaurants and maybe a little more green space, is probably a little more green space, is we have the grocer, we have a couple of restaurants, we have a couple of smaller places for people to congregate, and we have a hotel, which I think is an amenity people have been wanting, because everything around us, other than the new Residence Inn, which just opened, everything's old, right? It's in Creve Coeur, it's in Clayton, or it's up at the airport. And here now you can, do it near your house. And this is just sort of some added commentary. A friend of mine approached me 4 or 5 years ago, and he said, hey, if you put manual locks instead of key card locks, or in addition to key card locks on the first floor rooms of this hotel, Orthodox people could stay in this hotel. And I'm like, oh my God, this is genius. So I called my Protestant and Catholic partners and I said, hey, we're going to do this. And they're like, is this a thing? I'm like, it's totally a thing. And what does that do? That makes our hotel accessible to people who normally couldn't use it and would have to go somewhere else. And because I'm one of the owners, I can allow them to let kosher food be brought in, where as the franchisee, I get to make that kind of decision, where we make it welcoming to as many people as possible and don't have it, well, I'd love to come there, but I can't because of blank. I want to know what's the problem and how do we address it? So, is it not what it originally was? I would say it's different. And I think in some ways it's a little bit, it has some less things and it has some new more things that I never contemplated back. I started this, I called my lawyer in February of 14 and said, I got a really bad idea. Did I think it was going to take 12 years or so? You know, I mean, we're at 9 and February will be 10 to be a decade since I first called Carlos and said, I'm going to try something really stupid. Now, here's the beauty of it though. Back then it was a $35 million project. It's going to finish out probably in the neighborhood of $200 million. What that does for Ladue schools, even with the TIF comparatively, and what it does for our city from sales taxes, use taxes, utility taxes. Honestly, I think everybody wins. I do know the neighbors don't completely agree because they don't like tall buildings in their backyard, but you know, growth is growth. So yeah, that's my 2 cents in a very long-winded way after a very long day.
And I'm sorry, I was just gonna add to that, the original vision for this was for the taller buildings. So the council, as Greg made these changes, we were in concert with them. I had the same kind of a thought as the number and amount of green spaces going away, but it went from a less than $1 million in development to over 200 million, and it is, so there's a lot of pluses to it in its new configuration. I think we still tried to maintain a lot of what we had, and the one thing I will note is we did come through with something that was hopefully we wanted from the beginning, which was a grocery store. So that was tougher than we thought. So
That's a very good point, Greg, is that if you look at the strategic plan and the catalyst strategy of 2005, 6, it actually calls for big buildings on this site, which I actually pushed back against back then because I didn't know how I could possibly do that. Turns out I can. So, we'll end up at north of 400,000 square feet of structure in this thing by the time we're done. And way more sales tax than we ever projected, especially with the grocer.
So we made the recommendation to council based on the $35 million development. Now it's 200 million. Where do those financials go? I guess is that what's being presented to the council as they make decisions? Because we haven't seen.
I think the revised, when we went back to the TIF commission.
The revision came back here. When
Okay.
we initially started at 75,000 square feet of retail, 1-story retail. There might have been a 2-story building in the middle in there. And one of it was like a mid-size to mid-large box, probably something.
Yeah,
about
it was on
75.
lot 4.
Yeah.
It was all 1 story, but the sort of where we'd planned the grocer was more in sort of where the middle courtyard area is.
So I want to say that was about 2017, 2018, 19, the revision came in to have a more complex use and higher density use in there. And then there was a subsequent revision in 2021 for the grocer component of it on lots 1 and 2.
And just so I heard you right, the office building's on hold until you find the right tenant.
Correct.
Obviously conditions aren't conducive for that right now.
No.
That could be another 2 years. I mean, who knows, right?
We don't know.
I work at the Federal Reserve, and maybe I don't know either. But that then gets built and then we get the hotel at some point after that, right?
So I think, so the plan is, because one of the beauties is, because I'm the eternal optimist, right? We are zoned, we're entitled, I've put in all the utilities. All I need is a set of building plans approved by PCDC and the council to build an office building. So that's sort of our pitch to the big tenants is we're the only shovel-ready project in the county. Maybe there's something in Chesterfield, right? So as soon as we have that flight plan, we then flight plan the hotel, because what we'd like to do is build them both at the same time. It just might mean that we need to start the office building 90 days sooner, so the hotel isn't ready until the building is completely sealed up. We may still be doing internal TI in the office building, but it's the concept from Marriott is nothing should be able to fall off the building or get dropped and pop a tire. That's really, it's a customer service play. But yeah, there should be no significant delay between 5 and 6.
So I commend your optimism and your perseverance. So good luck.
Oh, look, my dad tells me about the days when interest rates were 22%, right? Every bad cycle ends, right? The world, there have been so many, the 80s when people were selling their houses in the East Coast and coming to the table with money because they didn't have enough money to, everybody thought the world was going to end then too. I'm just not a believer. I'm a believer that this too shall end. Will it come back? Look, unlike many of the people in my business, I never believed the 3% interest rates were going to stay, because when I bought my first house, the teaser rate was 4.25 and it reset to 8.25 after, I think it was like 18 months. And people are freaking out now. I'm going, wait a minute, that's what I paid when I bought my first house. Why is it a problem? And I checked with and you would know more about this than I, but I checked with a friend of mine who does collections for a living, and he smelled 08. Like he knew 08 was coming because he was tapping bank accounts for money and they were all empty. And I actually asked him this last week sometime and he goes, nope, all accounts still have money in them. So is that a predictive guarantee of the future? It's absolutely not. Could something go so totally sideways? It absolutely could, especially with everything going on in the world. We bought it. We spent at least $22 million on developing the site so far with land, plus another 55 on the apartment building. We'll just make less, right? Like that's what I know is going to happen, but we're going to do it. And, at the end of the day, we may pull the pin on the hotel and say, we're going to take the risk to make it safe and make it work. But right now, I mean, I just signed the change documents sometime in the last 30 days with Marriott and had my onboarding with the Courtyard team. So we'll see how it goes. I want to get it done. Like I'm 55 years old now. It's time to wrap this. I thought this thing was going to be done by the time I was 50. So
A mere babe in the woods.
they're babe in the woods.
My 2 cents here. We've gone through some changes on this, and I think they've been the right changes in terms of not, mix, et cetera, all that stuff, notwithstanding. You kind of roll with the punches, the market, what's given to you. But and this is kind of a segue from what we're talking about earlier with the current plan, the city plan, the master plan, looking at ideas of concentration and things like that. And one thing that popped up in some of the surveys was that people are saying, enough with the apartments. We don't want any more apartments, but I don't really understand why. Because that's one of the problems with the survey. They just sort of say what they want. They don't really give any backup to that. But if you want a truly vibrant community with the type of amenities that people are wanting, you do have to build in that concentration of people. And even though we weren't looking at this originally as a residential component, adding that kind of makes some sense. And we actually had some of the other people, like for the people who weren't here during the time of the presentations, we did have some people who were looking at condominiums and apartments and things like that, but it just wasn't necessarily the right fit. But it seems as though, that vision sort of stuck. So I just, just saying that. And, the money side of it that we look at too, like what you alluded to, all the different levels and of taxation, which are going to help. And again, Greg's been here before a long time ago with regards to his first development on the other side of Price. And maybe you can give us a little bit of an update there, because in the last year, I think there were some milestones that were hit with regards to that. You might want to mention that.
Sure. So, 17 years ago when I built Price Crossing, before that I was in front of the EDC, and there was some opposition from the school district about how, it shouldn't have been a 353 deal and wait for something better. At the time, the total tax bill on all the parcels we bought was about $25,000 a year. My tax bill last year, you want me to close the door?
I can close. Yeah, we can only get one side though, because it's an open meeting. Sorry.
Oh, because it's an open meeting.
Yeah.
That's fine. Dawn will take care of it.
Kind of.
Carlos and the rules. Any
All right.
hoozy. So the tax bill back in the day was about 25,000. At the time, there were a couple houses, Mama's Restaurant had closed. My tax bill last year was $231,000 just for Price Crossing. So you're talking a 900% increase in property tax, 63% of which goes to our friends at Ladue School District. And there's no load for many kids at Price Crossing. In addition, I'd say for the last number of years, the average annual stabilized non-pandemic taxable retail sales have been floating around $10 million. I don't remember exactly what we predicted. I can tell you with absolute certainty, it was not as high as 10 million. Our newest tenant may increase that, will likely increase that by north of 60%. And if you just take the math, I think the city's share of all sales is about 3.6 with all the taxes. Parts,
Sounds about right. I
Yeah.
think it's a little, I don't think it goes over 3%.
all right.
1.25 is the cap, is our.
Well, maybe that shit'll add something.
Whatever.
Close
So
enough.
let's just call it 3 points on 15 million. $450,000 a year in sales tax to the city of Olivet, plus its share of the property tax. So Price Crossing, which at the time, that's my lovely wife, she'll wait. She's not listening in, so she didn't get to hear me say that. Was generating almost, if at times, zero sales tax, now close to $500,000, and another 230,000 in property taxes. So, my goal is with everything we modeled at Olive Crossing, it's the same kind of a deal, right? I want people to look back and go, wow, I want Darren to lose sleep over figuring out how to spend all this money.
We'll help him.
Exactly. And I'd also, well, say, hey, Greg, since you're on,
Yeah.
It'd be really sweet if the residents stopped paying for trash once I generate enough tax on Olive Crossing. If,
Right.
considered eliminating that bill. That's sort of been stuck in my craw for about a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, my hope is that Darren, who hasn't modeled any of this because he believes in dealing with it when it's real, starts to go, oh, it's like a fire hose of cash coming in, especially as soon as the grocer opens, because their projected sales are, well, that building alone will do more than the aforementioned 15 million at Price Crossing. So yeah, things are pretty good.
Now, with that, you've got some delays here, of course, with the commercial side of things, hotel, parking garage as well. So those 3 lots on the side, which were basically lots 5 and 6, right?
Correct.
There's going to be a delay. Could be a long one.
Could be.
Is there any plan to spruce it up in the meantime?
Mhm.
Because there
Yes.
has, a couple of things that are, like in front of the Oliver, we've got that empty lot, which was supposed to be not your,
Not enough time.
your development, but the other one, and, just putting something there, make it park-like, something like that. Is it, at all possible?
I don't know that we'll make it park-like. What we are
Yeah,
doing,
because we might have to go through that green space thing again.
we're going to, the trailer's being pulled because we don't need a double wide trailer when we start construction on lot 3. The aforementioned grocer, whose name I can neither confirm nor deny that's on the screen, is responsible for building their own building, so they'll have a trailer on their lot. But we're cleaning up the detention basin, getting it functional. They're going to grade and seed and straw the perimeter along Olive. They're finishing putting in some more tree grates. I noticed that because, not that you all would know this, but so with the development of the Costco, that precipitated road improvements on our side of Olive. And what normally would have happened was I would have done everything I had a permit for, then they would have come and ripped it all out and done what they were required to do. And we all decided it was in the betterment, especially of the residents of our city, that I just take care of it. And so the U City guys paid me. As an example, that brings in as a result, that brought in a second traffic engineer. And little details got missed, like 2 of the old light poles are still there. So I'm ordering 2 new ones. There's a tree grate that needs to be replaced because their engineer missed some stuff. And my engineer's like, hey, that's their job, not my job. It's great. I just get to pay for everything. So I'm getting you a pizza at Mod Pizza. See, that's a good wife after 30 years. We're going to clean up the lots. We'll brush hog them. We'll seed and straw them. But we're also going to keep them fenced off because from a security standpoint, we just don't want anybody wandering. And, the little things like the aforementioned storm, July the 1st, it took out sections of our fence that take upwards of 18 weeks to get replaced. So I don't even know when those are coming, but you know. We're
No,
dealing with it.
we understand it's a temporary fix.
Yeah.
Yeah, but temporary could be a while.
What else?
Other questions?
Couple of tough ones, if you don't mind. So the TIF was issued 2017
Something like that. It
and it's a 21-year TIF and
was 23. Yeah.
we're 6 years in.
Mhm.
How do you see all that balancing?
So the grocer's the great leveler of all of that. So while we are significantly behind the time schedule of the original plan, having an extra, whatever the number is, it's at least 10 million in extra sales that we didn't plan for. That effectively rights the ship. We were always overfunded, if you will, because I just look, without casting aspersions on anybody, there's a project not far from me in another municipality that might adjoin us. Their gross development cost is going to be about $170 million. Their TIF was 50 something plus another SID of at least 20. They were over 75 million in incentives. With our SID, we're at maybe 32. And we're going to have significantly less sales tax because they're all retail, but we're going to have significantly more building. And that is more stable in an economic turndown, number one. But to your question, I had it remodeled to make sure that we were still more than okay. And Laura tells me we're more than okay, and she runs 120 taxing jurisdictions. So yeah, you get more money over a shorter period and it rights the ship pretty quick.
And then the second question would be if the office market doesn't change or stays stagnant, and there are, you kind of described, if there's an option B
Mhm.
of getting the hotel and then either converting lot 5 into something,
Mhm.
usable or fencing it in, usable, like, maybe it becomes a farmer's market area or something. Is that a possibility to get it?
Yeah, so to build the hotel first, we'd have to effectively, fence off the lot and keep everything sort of within the perimeter. Secondly, while it is our intention to follow the plan and build an office building, because I believe, given the lack of any building of office buildings other than US Capitol Plaza, the backfilling of all the quality space, the vacant space in the market is B and C class, which is not as highly amenitized. So any big corporation needs a big block of space over 50,000 square feet. It literally does not exist in the county anymore. It's not available. So not everybody's downsizing. People are actually growing. That's where my optimism comes in. And yet, and I'll give you an example that we evaluated, but was simply infeasible. We're looking at other options. One of them was there was an RFP out that we got from St. Louis Development Corp or Greater St. Louis. USA Gymnastics was looking for a facility to be built that would have been office space, medical space. The hotel would have probably been part of the hotel they were looking for, competition, a whole bunch of things. It would have been put in about 30 pounds in a 4-pound bag. And of course, they wanted the developer to operate it too, which really was the real problem, right? Financing aside, we're not running a gymnastics competition facility. And the car count that was expected would have precipitated massive parking garages. So we have our eye out for all kinds of things. And I get calls from Greater St. Louis or SLDC or periodically saying, hey, would this work? Because we've built the relationships. I'm in close contact with 39 North, right? They're attempting to add ag tech businesses to St. Louis. Well, some of them are going to need lab space and some of them might need a really big office building with lab space. So
I think Benson Hill.
Benson, exactly. Another Benson Hill, although their finances right now, not so good. The original developer's glad they sold it. Right. That's on the table. Like we're open for creativity. We're not saying this is an office building and it must be an office building. It has to be an office building. The question is, what does it need to be given the conditions of the world? And something could come in tomorrow or it could be 6 months. And as I've said to my lenders, look, at the end of the day, if I build the apartment building the grocery store, the retail building and a hotel, and I've got 3.8 acres left over. And maybe it, like, I don't want this by any stretch of imagination, but let's say it sits for 4 or 5 years. The TIF's gonna be fine. The city's gonna be fine. The project's gonna be fine. And we'll just have to wait it out a little bit, right? But what I don't want to do is panic and do the wrong thing. And so I'm sort of a slow and steady wins. It's been 9.5 years, right? Patient capital wins at all times. And so I think with the public-private partnership we have with the city, everything will be fine. It's just going to be different. Or it may be an office building tomorrow.
You answered my next question. Can you do this without that extended development if it doesn't happen right away?
Right.
And just dovetailing into that, if it's not an office building, you do have a fairly large parking garage, and that is also part of the hotel because the hotel's wedged in there pretty good. There's not a lot of parking around it. I imagine the parking garage is still part of it. It may be downsized, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so the
possibly, or-
parking garage is a picture like an accordion, right? The bigger the office building is, the more parking we need. What I drew in this model was the max load of a 6-story office building. If we build a 4-story building, we need a smaller garage. The newer plan that is not in, this is an older drawing, because we just did the change to courtyard. The courtyard realignment, the footprint got a little smaller, more parking ended up on the hotel lot. So it needs about 40 spaces out of lot 5 is all it needs. And so if we do it temporarily, we'll just pave the southern end of lot 5 to get the hotel up and operating. And so, we do a 4-story building, that garage, we just push the line back to the north and open it up a little bit or press it in, right? It's fully an accordion based. It's really it's a load factor thing. So if you have 120,000 feet at 4 per thousand, you need 460 plus 50 for the hotel, you need 510. If you have 180,000, I wanted to show the worst case scenario from a coverage standpoint. What it ends up being. I mean, I can say this publicly. Yeah, I think I can. I will anyway. So Bear was looking for lab, office, and a greenhouse. We made it to the 3rd round. And what I envisioned happening was the greenhouse sitting on top of the garage with their lab space and their office space on the north end. We had our architects do drawings. I mean, just to give you a flavor, like we're looking for the fish, right? We're not just waiting for it to jump in a boat. So we spent a bunch of money, and in the end, Bear wanted more growth capacity because ours is obviously maxed out at 3.9. They wanted a 10+ acre site because what if this business model grows? And I get it, right? But just know that those are the kind of things that somebody comes to us with the right configuration, that the math works for us and the TIF, deal gets done. Because it's really fun spending money with architects on drawings that never go anywhere over and over again. I got renderings for companies you wouldn't believe.
Kind of like college and writing term papers that never get acted on.
Or my daughter who filed 12 applications and got into one, because that's just how it works. So yeah, we're beating the bushes. We got one of the best brokerage teams in office working for us, and I'm doing the retail, and we signed up the hotel, and the Clover is kicking it.
And a time frame with the not to be mentioned named grocery store.
My understanding from he who shall not be named is their goal is to start construction May or June and open in March of 25.
And these are public plans. I mean,
Yeah, I'm just
formal-
joking.
formal
Obviously,
applications
we all know
submitted.
Aldi's coming to the site, right?
so,
Understand.
Yeah, we still have to sign the lease, but it's a good sign that they submitted the plans. Their lawyer took 29 days on the last revision, which my lawyer usually takes 4. So I was a little frustrated, which I expressed to them.
So actually, it's kind of interesting that they do have Aldi's, and there are few more actually springing up around the metro area.
It's the hottest chain in the country.
Yeah, and you've got one in U City, you've also got one in Creve Coeur, and we're right basically in the middle of that. I understand that they do have a slightly different product mix depending on their demographics.
And number of aisles and store size, and yes, And I'll tell you a brief story.
How,
'cause-
how do we, before you go into the story,
Yeah.
how do they envision, or have you got that far as to what this one will be like versus their sister locations?
The only thing you really can know, or I could know, is the architecture. And the architecture is going to be upgraded from what they have to the latest. It's the latest Aldi prototype. It uses Nichiha wood. You can see the floor plan. I mean, they're packing this store with aisles because they intend to do a ton of volume. My story is that back in the 90s, I used to do work for McDonald's when we did financial modeling using paper and pen. And what they found was if you had a McDonald's and another McDonald's 4 miles away, and each one of those two stores did 2 million. If you put a McDonald's in the middle, each one of the 3 stores would do 2.2 million. Adding more stores, as crazy as it may sound, actually raises volume. So, you know, this, and I'll also tell you, this is the 3rd time we negotiated this deal with Aldi. They came at me 3 or 4 years ago and they said, oh my God, it's so close to U City. We could never do that. That was their idea. They called me and I said, yeah, this makes no sense. I don't know how you could do this unless you have a vision for it. And they came back a couple of years later. They tried to do the buy one, get one free deal, like I was having a sale on real estate. I said, thanks, but no. And then the 3rd time they said, okay, let's see if we can figure this out. And we'll hopefully have the lease signed inside the next 10, 12 days. The plans are into the city. So that's pretty much, they usually don't spend this kind of money and submit unless they're serious. So
Are the tractor trailers coming in off a price?
the tractor trailers may come in. We have our truck turning radius program, shows them ideally coming down price, pulling into the site. If you want to pull a site plan up, perfect. And then backing into the dock. And then they will pull out of the dock and turn left and go to Olive Crossing, go on Olive Crossing Way up to Hilltop, and then be able to either continue on to the store to the west or the store to the east, whichever way they're going.
You know, I'm not one to speak to shopping patterns, because I don't do much grocery shopping, but I do know that some people actually go to Aldi's for some stuff and then they do a multiple round of stores. They'll go to Aldi's, they'll go to Deerberg's, so just because of prices at Aldi's and something special at Deerberg's, and so I guess people do that, so.
My wife doesn't.
Yeah.
3 stores. There's the things at Deerberg's, the things at Schnucks. Well, I'm sorry. There's the things at Aldi's. Then there's the things at Walmart. Oh, wait, and Costco and Sam's. So we go to 5 stores that I know of.
Yeah.
So yeah, but David, the dock is on that side, and that's, you know, I've talked with them ad infinitum, and I'm certain Carlos will. We want screening out the wazoo. We, as the owners of a $50+ million apartment building, I've talked to them about delivery times and, you know, making sure that we don't impact our own tenants, so that, you know, no beeping backup horns at 4 o'clock in the morning and things like that. Now, we did buy Italian windows, and if you ever want to see something cool, go to one of my apartments and have them open a window and then close it. You would not believe it literally kills the noise. These windows are insane.
Oh, I love you got those tilt turns, don't you?
The what?
No, I'm sorry, I'm thinking someplace else, never mind.
Ours are called Pivas. They're Italian, but they tilt in, they rotate, they do all kinds.
That's what I meant, the tilt turns, yeah,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
great, those, I like those.
So help me help you, because you probably get asked this question a lot and I get it asked from time to time. Why has U City been able to accomplish so much on their side compared to what we have?
So mostly because what you find in U City, I mean, one, when you have a driver of a Costco with a sales float like that, it sort of pushes the things faster. Secondly, there are a lot of tenants going into U City I said no to, because I live here, right? I don't want what everybody else has. I want different, right? We talked to First Watch. I really wasn't excited about it. There's 7 First Watches in town. I'm happy. We have the first Paris baguette, right? The other restaurant chain we're talking to has signed 1 lease in St. Louis. They're a growing chain out of the Southeast, right? But it's a small family company and they're growing their footprint across the country. I don't want what everybody else has. Are we going to have a little bit of what everybody else has? I'm certain we will. But the arguments in the positive sense that I've had with my partner over, I had a term sheet signed before the pandemic for a certain bread co type corporation, might be that one, to go where the building of Aldi is. And the fact is the pandemic hit and we never signed the lease. I couldn't be happier. That's not what we want. I don't need another bread co in this town. So if you look at what's there, and again, it's a fine business model, but it's Raising Cane's, it's Chick-fil-A, it's Panera, it's Chipotle, Sport Clips, and Chase Bank. I have a higher level expectation for my town. So, and that takes time because you have to be picking, the calls I get from people interested. I'll give you an example. A retailer called me. It's a local retailer. They sell stuff, so I'll leave them anonymous. I checked their Google reviews. They're god awful. I'm not interested in that. That's a problem for me. They would do nice sales, be good for the community-ish in sales. But when I see a business owner have a terrible reputation, I don't want that person as a tenant. And so I'm picky, and my partner and I argue sometimes about my level of expectation and pickiness. I'd rather wait longer and make a little less and have people go, you know what? Greg drove it out of the park because I'm not moving. Right? I've been here, it'll be 30 years in January. So, yeah. Just tell them I'm picky, or my wife says stubborn. It's, either way. What else?
Anything else?
I
No,
don't know.
I really
Or I
appreciate
guess, what professionally now, what do you see in the horizon for the corridor? With what's going on with U City, what's going on with Bear, and then what we've seen here?
Look, action begets action. The economic headwinds are really hard right now. Do I see property, our challenge in Olivet from a development standpoint is the geometric configuration of parcel ownership in its current condition. It's shallow. People ask me all the time, why doesn't Olivet Center, right? Why doesn't it get redeveloped? Well, the problem is if you tear it down and then you apply setbacks and current regulations, what do you got? You don't have anything unless you break it up into like 5 drive-through restaurants. Is that, I don't feel like that's what I want, right? If I'm a resident. So it's going to take what honestly the collective, we have done twice. It takes public-private partnership. We did it. I mean, people were fighting us when we tried Price Crossing 17 years ago. I would say, I think we proved them wrong that this was actually a really good thing for the community. And the same thing with Olive Crossing. It's going to take someone crazy, such as myself, to say, okay, how do we move who's ever in this way out of the way? And yet, the difference between now and 20 years ago is that concept in taking out a subdivision, I believe, is fully over. Like, that's gone. So now we have to look at what commercial businesses and lots we have and how can we reposition them, combine them with adjoining properties, honestly get creative with the layouts, because it's tough when you have shallow depth and narrow. I mean, if you go to the county GIS and look at the map without the improvements, the parcel lines are a real challenge for our town. It always has been, and it always will be, to get it to work. But I'm the optimist, right? So I say, all right, show me something you don't think you can do, and I'll try to figure out how to do it. So we're not like Overland Park, Kansas, right? Where they build subdivisions, they put giant commercial corridors on the main street, and they just wait for it to fill in. We didn't have that luxury. Our town started developing over 150 years ago. So we're sort of stuck with some of the layout. Not that it's impossible, it's just not easy.
With the apartment building, what's your schedule for filling up? Are you on plan? Are you behind?
I think we're a little behind because we also started later than we anticipated. Our head of management on our last investor call said, I think she anticipates it's a 10-month process.
Okay. And Carlos, just as a matter of course, how's the Oliver doing? Do you know what the vacancy rate there is like?
Last time their occupancy rate was well over 90%.
Okay.
We heard like about 3 units that were vacated.
Yeah, because
That's been a couple of months ago. Now, remember, they just opened in July.
Right.
Just looking at social media, there's, people out there, errant comments, that sort of thing. We, apparently we've got apartment buildings that are empty. So, you know, that's what.
I was
predicates my
also told I
question.
was building a Red Roof Inn and a Rallies too.
And there's been no movement on the former Opus property.
Mhm.
So that's just waiting for something to happen. Okay. All right.
It'll come. We have a great city. We're in a great location. We got a great demographic.
I speak a little bit from the standpoint of understanding occupancy rates and demand for housing.
Mhm.
Anyways, just.
If you look at the
proceed.
national
Yeah.
trends over the last 40 years, with the obsolescence factor, along with the growth in the population rate, the country is still hundreds of thousands of apartment units short. I don't say that necessarily in the central county.
Right.
But I think we're going to be fine. The Avenir is going to be fine. The Mackenzie, if you want to live a party lifestyle, you go live there. That's great. And eventually the Opus guys or whoever that have the Irvington subdivision, eventually they'll build it. I'm not unhappy that they're putting more and more time space between us and them, because I think that's good for us and for them. You don't want too much product in the market at the same time.
All right. I think we've beaten this horse. It's not a dead horse, but we've beaten this horse a fair amount.
Normally I'm quiet and shy, but around you, it's different. I'm gonna go eat pizza.
Yeah, no kidding. You don't want it cold, that's for sure. We don't want to keep you any longer, but we do appreciate coming out, enlightening us as to your progress. And, keep it going. It seems like it's going in the right direction. Yeah. All right. Thanks again.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, Carlos, any updates on the 5-year economic development plan?
Don's gonna just talk real quickly about the kind of doing a business of the year award,
Oh, I love this idea.
so.
So, Business of the Year awards, we've discussed this briefly, at previous meetings. The idea as we're proposing it is, that we send it out in the, I'm not quite sure if I have these, dates right, but, in the newsletters, January and March, and then the, Creve Coeur Olivet Chamber has their annual event in May. But we would push out a survey that would ask for people's top recommendations. We're recommending we start with one category and do like the top restaurant. I'm there. We talked about doing multiple categories, but this being our first year, probably one category would be, best, especially considering, staffing restrictions. What do you guys think about that? Okay.
We have
Oh,
two
use your microphone.
I would say, what about just like residents' favorite, like residents' pick? So it could be anything.
It could be anything.
Yeah.
Like business of the year.
Business of the year.
I mean, from a logistics standpoint, I get your point. Like just
Yeah.
organizing that with limited staff would be a nightmare. But I wouldn't think, given the state of our restaurant choices, that maybe that'd be the first category we go with.
I
I don't
gotcha.
know, but I mean, I don't have great suggestions of what the alternative would be because we don't have a ton of, shops either.
No, keep in mind of eating and drinking establishments is what.
Yeah.
And we have about 15 along the Olive Corridor, and that's a good amount for the 2.8 miles. And that's one of the things that we don't do well is advocate or market.
I don't know, why can't Planhaven win? Or the bowling alley or the
Or the
sports
bowling
bar
alley
store?
has a bar and grill.
They have a
so-
bar and rest, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in a way, you could think of is something, a future goal to do a best restaurant. Best restaurant is it does or eating establishment. It would be open to everything. Like we've got Revo Cup and it would be all eating and drinking establishments. we would give, or at least in what we put together in a structure, would be a survey that goes out to the greater community. And it has a list of like the top choices. We would prepare that list. They would have to meet certain criteria, namely, they would have to have their business license first and foremost. This year, it seems to be problematic, so, yes, they have to have a business license. But, we come up with that original list, the list goes in, so it's a predetermined list that goes into the survey. And then the Olivet residents would be able to select from that list. So in a way, it concentrates that, with the restaurants. So we wouldn't have to worry about people feeling necessarily left out if we're specific. However, I don't know, it's really up or I would like to leave it up to you guys as to what you would like to do. It becomes a little more complicated, to do the list of businesses or to do it as a list of businesses if we're not focusing it on a restaurant. However, like, it doesn't have to be that way either. Like, so that's the original survey idea. And it can be more open format, as it were.
So you're basically proposing the idea that you tell everybody what the businesses are and they pick either businesses, whatever.
They give
Okay.
their top three.
Versus a write-in.
Right. So, I put together, I mean, this is very much a draft, and the way we would analyze it, they would pick 3 of 15, say, and then as a committee, we evaluate those 3, what came out tops for the community, evaluate them for community participation. What have they done good? What good have they done in the community to serve their community?
I think you could just put it on the EDC to say, these are the nominated companies this year from the Economic Development Commission. Here's 20 companies.
Yeah.
Because I want to vote for 314 Sports Cards because it is the best business in all of Olivet, and
I go there once a week.
it's
and
the
I
best.
agree.
Devin is my hero. What he's done with Sports Card is amazing, and I want to be able to vote for him.
I cannot believe how many people I see there at lunchtime.
It is-
It's kind of crazy because workers come in and I'm like, so this is the money that's rolling in.
People go and hang out there, like they spend the day there hanging out. It is the one community store we have is a sports.
This is in Olivet. I didn't even know it was there.
Oh, you gotta check it out, Greg.
I haven't
It's the
been in there. I've
best.
been
Oh,
by
it's
there,
the best.
it's right beside the diner.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So
I
I
did
did-
my-
All right. Well, I remember I'm not living in town right now, so I don't see everything every day.
Come back and visit it.
Yeah.
You need to get back in town.
All right, so that's my humble.
Well, I gotta
suggestion,
be there 3 times this week. It's just not tonight. So,
that we bring to you the list,
Okay.
as a team. So
Okay.
then it's on our shoulders if someone gets mad and you could blame us.
I think that's good.
And then put it in a survey and we'll tabulate and we'll come up with a winner.
Sounds.
You-
I just want to make the trophy.
Yeah, you
That's
supply us
really I want to do.
you supply us all the business names. We'll cull it down.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there. The big thing I want is I want a ceremony, not just a trophy, but we need like a
Well,
ceremony.
the Greek
Trumpets.
Core Olivet
That's right.
Chamber has a ceremony, and so it's an they have to be a chamber member. So Olivet business license.
Well, this
chamber
is
member.
separate from the chamber.
we can, I mean, I don't want to speak because I'm not positive, but I would support a proclamation.
Oh, I love
Presenting it at a
proclamation,
city
too.
council meeting. What? Yeah.
Trophies, proclamations, this is great.
This is great. We're going the right
Oh,
direction.
I love this, of course.
Okay, so you're, okay,
You might
so
have to
this
work
would be
on
in
the one
conjunction,
over there.
this would be in conjunction with the chamber.
There's a process. We're trying to mimic Creve Core's process of the ward.
I see,
And,
okay.
and to make sure that we're active and engaged with the chamber. We don't get anything from the chamber. We just stand on the sidelines. So there is a process in there. They do have an annual awards banquet and Don will confidently agree on that process. And I mean, even after that, the council can, or, you know, provide a proclamation separately or independently in there. So one of the things is, I think is it May?
Yes, it's
You know,
May. It's an
uh,
additional.
For the past 5 years that, you know, there's been business awards given at the chamber luncheon and all of that's never represented.
Well, it's just, okay, so the caveat is that they, in order to win the award or be nominated, you have to be a chamber member.
Not necessarily, that's never been a requirement through the Creve Court. It is a plus.
Oh,
and there
okay, I
has
didn't
not
know if
been
it
a,
was.
In their,
Again, Creve
in their
Court is voting,
criteria for
the cri-
getting the award, winning the award.
Creve Court doesn't have that criteria in their process.
But it'd be up to us because we're the EDC.
Correct. If we want them to be chamber members or encourage them.
Well, I mean, if they don't require it,
complicated.
then it's not a requirement
gets-
for us to give them an award. It would simply be their business license from our end. And we may want to track out taxes, I guess. I don't know. There's a whole lot you can.
Yeah,
do.
they gotta be current on their taxes. There's no question about that.
Of course. 2 cents from the councilman.
Yeah.
All right, great.
But we could look at a broader thing. The restaurants was easy to provide that selection in there. When you go to just any general business,
Hang on, dude, don't.
Consumer facing business,
mhm,
a consumer not like some guy who runs his like lawn care service out of his house. That's not what we're talking about.
Mhm.
Like
Or Murphy Company
that
either.
is consumer
Well, if you
facing,
go with restaurants, don't, sports
One's
cards
like,
come with a
there's
pack of
one-
gum?
No, not
And
anymore.
isn't-
Not
no?
anymore.
No,
They used to. Not
I
anymore.
was thinking that could be, you know.
the goal would be if we put it out for the community to, so that it could go in an inverse, instead of the community forwarding to the EDC, the top 3 businesses, the EDC will forward to the community the top businesses that they would like the community to take a look
Yeah.
at and then select from there, and
Yeah.
it's the top business award. So the hiccup comes that when we get the community input, it would be easier for us if we, we can probably put 12 of these businesses in the newsletter as opposed to all 300 and then
We're
have
gonna
people
choose
vote.
20 top businesses for you,
Yeah.
Carlos. It's
And
gonna be great. We're gonna have a ceremony. It's gonna be fun.
And I
Don't
think
worry
that
about it.
that would work. And then Don can then turn it into, a survey so the residents can select
Perfect.
their top 3.
We'll do it at one of our meetings and we'll fill the room.
I really love your guys'.
Oh, no, you gotta take on marijuana to do that.
Well, we don't have the
Yeah, you
dispenser
know,
anymore.
we're Trying to push for that also. All right.
I appreciate it. And,
Okay.
you know, it makes it more important. Yeah, I think that it'll be something that becomes important to our businesses going forward. So,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, Don, was there anything else with 5-year plan?
No, that was
Okay.
it.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. All right, moving on to other business, Carlos.
You have a set of meeting minutes before you that was prepared by Mr. Carlton?
I'd like to make a motion to approve those minutes.
I will second that.
All in favor? Aye.
All right.
Okay. Those opposed? None being heard. The motion is carried. All right, and reports.
Quickly, we met with representatives of Balboa, which is
Balboa.
doing the, what they call the Olive Apartments, and that's right behind the Chevys and CVS.
Former
one that
Opus.
Mr.
Former
Yower
Opus,
referred to. And right now, they are hoping to submit for permitting sometime in December, January. They're just kind of looking at interest rates and, hoping that they start to fall in that process. And their goal would be to be in occupancy by 2025. They seem pretty competent in terms of moving forward. In there, they were kind of doing some value engineering in that process in there. So that's where we are with them.
Are there any indications that the plans have changed?
No,
basically cookie cutter?
Continue the same layout and such, so. Yes,
Okay.
that's where we are with them in terms of, we also met with Michael Sansone. Who's with I forget if it's Ridge House Capital. So they own the vacant lot next to the Oliver. And his concern or his issue right now is everybody's looking at the crossing and the U City side. Once those are set or those buildings are up, that will then feed to his building or what he can or in there. But right now, you know, if you're a eating establishment or retailer, you're waiting to see what's going to happen over here at the corner before you're going to look inline and all. And so he had a reasonable explanation on it in there. So
It seems like developers are good at developing excuses.
yes, yeah,
That's
it is, and it's hard
No.
to
Yeah.
it's hard to determine, you know, where, you know, every time is a different time, and whether this pandemic created some type of chaos, in that process or not, and we were doing a presentation for UMSL, regarding community development and identity, and the slide package I put together is, you know, it's all about patience. I mean, it's a long range game, and you just have to be patient. And it's hard. I mean,
Yeah.
it you know.
Given that there is also retail proponent of the storage facility.
Correct. And we've met with them, and they have already engaged with two potential tenants. I can't identify who they are. One of those tenants, again, there's conditions within their development agreement of having what they call like a high retail generator in there, and it looks like, you know, it sounds exciting what they're working on, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that everything else works within the code for it. So
I was noticing that structure this week, and if you recall, we had some tough discussions with that group about the cost of lumber.
mhm.
And I also noticed that none of their structure is made of
It's all
lumber.
metal.
Yeah, it's all metal, so. It's interesting how that one played out.
Don't have an excuse for that. Sorry. Yeah, and then the St. Louis Academy of Dance is relocating to the old Tuesday morning site. So that opens up their old facility, which is about 6,000 square feet, but the building's perpendicular to Olive, and you only see it facing if you're going westbound on Olive. And it's a hard parking site for a retailer, so we'll probably do some outreach and see what we can try to engage for that site.
Probably dispensary would be good there.
Put the word out.
It's a terrible market.
It's
But
difficult for something that would be very high or demanding or high volume in there. And again, it may make sense for something like that that's more of a niche, or people are going to.
Turning the parking spots perpendicular to match the building, then it wouldn't be as bad.
That's right now, that's the way they're set.
Oh, is it?
Mhm.
Oh.
So everything is.
Oh,
It's
it's terrible.
My daughter dances there. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Every Saturday.
So,
Yeah.
so they're doubling their size,
Yeah,
and it's a
super excited about it.
great finish and improvement that they'll have. And it balances well because they'll bring, it's impressive of the number of members and participants and what they'll bring in and go eat and buy cards, you know, while they're there.
That's right.
Yeah, the girls can dance and the brothers can go down and look at baseball cards. There you go.
And I hope
Sports
you-
cards are for everyone.
Have some waffles, the slinger.
That is very true.
Hope you RSVP to the community, the Five Oaks grand opening. It's a really sharp building. Beverly did a top-notch job, and it's coming together. They've already had a couple of functions. And I think that's scheduled for next week. It's this week,
There's
but it's extremely.
Well, there's a VIP
Wednesday.
pre thing this week.
Oh,
public opening is November.
VIP.
Oh, yeah, that's right. November, it's either November 4th or 7th.
So,
I
you
think we're all VIP.
know about the one this week, you're part of the VIP group.
Is it an open house this week by chance?
No, you were supposed to RSVP. I mean, there's gonna be food and
No, no,
drink.
I did.
Yeah, yeah.
Am I allowed to show up late is really what I'm asking.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I think it's just I don't know if there's any presentation. I think it's just you come, you eat, you
Okay.
socialize and look around.
So it's this week.
Wednesday.
It's,
The,
wait a minute, it was one of the days I have to be, yeah, it is Wednesday, because it's one of the days I have to be. And all of that, because that's why, one of the reasons I'm not coming, I'm gonna Zoom the council meeting tomorrow, so I'm not there 4 days this week.
so like the invitation only open house or I forget what it's called. I thought it was also called an open house, is this Wednesday. But then there is a grand opening event that is taking place in early November.
I think I
And
registered.
I
I
am
registered
not-
for something. I don't-
If I'm not mistaken, I think all commission members got invited to the pre one.
And if it's something you registered for, it was this one, because I don't believe that you have to register for the grand opening.
Then the last thing would be up at 1220 North Price, very active building, world's largest indoor paddleball court.
Oh, yeah.
Put a star on the map here and all of that. What was impressive was the publication that Bamboo and Intellica did on there, and their references to when we started here 20 years ago and Shaneco moved in, it was on Olive Boulevard between Lindbergh and I-170. And like this place now, it's like it's in all of that, and
When are they opening?
they're looking at a December opening. And you go in there, they have the glass courts, the walls, the glass walls around the padel courts, I'm sorry. And they're moving aggressively.
So great.
And then next door will be Latch, who's changing their names to door.com, or I believe, or something like that. In there, but they'll be setting up operations on the warehouse side. So that's all I have.
All right, great. Mr. Carl.
Well, I think Greg, I was gonna give you a much less detailed update on the Gateway, but Greg did much better job than I could. Carlos hit most of the other things I was gonna talk about. So I will say that the Harvest Festival is this Saturday, right? Saturday, yeah, at 6 to 8 p.m. There will be costume contests, etc. We already talked about Five Oaks on Warson, which I was going to mention. And again, I just want to put in my plug for the Turkey Trot. This is the virtual year Turkey Trot t-shirt, if you can see it. I wore that as advertisement tonight, just to remind people. So that's it, all I got. Are there any questions for me?
I see that Greg mentioned that the lanes are going to be open by the end of this month. I know
That's what I heard, yeah.
they put some striping on already, and that's a good thing to see. Also, I noticed that across the street, they have power in their trailer over there now, and this is the condos right across the street. Doug Cohen's, yeah. So they're gonna do you know if they're starting working?
Yeah,
on-
he should start some grading by the end of this week, and then start prepping up for the MSD utilities that will go into that site.
Right.
And they'd like to get a footing down probably before the end of the year, or a foundation in place before the end of the year.
Would they build all the foundations at once?
No,
Or they,
no.
okay, they're
They're
gonna
come
start
in
with
and
one.
phase with north starting first,
Okay,
I believe.
I do have one clarification that the open house is on November 5th for Five Oaks on Warson,
that's the open
Oh.
house, not the VIP.
not the VIP. Yes,
VIP is definitely this Wednesday. I got my trip planned.
there's that. Yeah.
Okay.
But I wanted to be clear.
Fantastic.
It says it November 5th here, but maybe that is a Sunday,
All right.
but it's an open house for the parks, not a, sorry, we could talk.
I do believe it's a Sunday afternoon.
Okay. Fantastic.
Excellent. Yeah.
All right, with that, I do believe we have concluded and we shall adjourn.
All right, thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
See you, Greg.
Thanks, sir.